Well, good morning. It's Tuesday morning, and we're back from Northern Ireland, safe and sound. And we're going to look at Matthew 13, um, which is a very familiar parable. We're going to look at Matthew 13 and actually a little bit of the whole chapter, really. There's a kind of an outline here. So, first, there's the parable of the sower. And then the disciples say, "Why do you teach them in parables, Jesus? Why don't you tell them what you think?" And he gives them some reasons. And then Matthew explains the parable, has Jesus explaining it to the disciples, which I've always read was the sort of the early churches saying, "This is what we think this parable is about." And so that's what we all think about. I'm just going to try to tease some different understandings out of that, not change it. But anyway, so Matthew 13, we're going to read a few verses for today. That same day, Jesus went out of the house and sat beside the sea. Great crowds gathered about him, so that he got into a boat and sat down, and the whole crowd stood on the beach. And he told them many things in parables, saying, "A sower went out to sow. And as he sowed, some seeds fell along the path, and the birds came and devoured them. Other seeds fell on rocky ground where they did not have much soil, and immediately they sprang up, since they had no depth of soil, but when the sun rose, they were scorched, and since they had no root, they withered away. Other seeds fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked them. Other seeds fell on good soil and produced grain, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. He who has ears, let him hear." So what we see here is Jesus, like any established rabbi, he goes out, he sits down beside the sea. Now, in our case, the students sit down and the professor gets up at a lectern or, pulpit sort of looking thing, and talks. And I remember one lecture hall where the lectern was up like 4 feet up on a big wooden platform, and so the professor climbed up there, and he was very much above us and high. And he could see the whole room, and he could lecture to a couple hundred people. That's kind of what Jesus does in his context, which is to sit. And so he goes out and sits by the sea, and the crowd gathers around him. And there's so many people that he says, this isn't going to work. So he gets in a boat, and, they row out 2 or 3 some yards, I don't know how far. And he sits in the boat, and they stand on the side, and they can hear him, and he talks. So some of that's the context. When Jesus is all the time sitting down, that's actually a symbol that he's about to teach, and this is what you need to listen to. He's sitting there and he teaches them in parables. And we've said that parables are like jokes. If you have to explain them too much, then you really need to improve the joke, improve the parable. So parable of the sower, and we know that when he went out and he threw seeds everywhere, and some fell in a good place and some didn't. And here's the thing. Now, when we go to plant stuff, I'm guessing, because I don't have much experience with planting stuff, but when we go to plant stuff, we go along and we make a road and we dig little holes and we put a little fish in there with 3 seeds, and it grows beautiful corn. Thank you, Squanto the Pilgrim, the Indian who helped the Pilgrims, right? That is not how they did things in the ancient world. The sower just went out and threw the seeds everywhere. Now, if he's throwing seeds everywhere, he's not really caring where they go. And some go in the rocks, and some go in the path, and some go in the good dirt, and some go in the dirt that's kind of over some rocks and not very deep. So why does the parable seem to indict those who don't grow? If he's just throwing it everywhere and it lands on the path, well, that's, somebody's just sweep that off into the dirt. If you're planting seeds and some of it goes on the sidewalk, you can hardly blame the seeds for not growing, right? So there's something weird about this parable, I think, about the sower. But the sower just indiscriminately throws the seeds everywhere. Some of it grows, some of it starts to grow and doesn't. Some of it grows and grows well, and then oof, the sun shines on it. And some of it grows beautifully and, makes hundreds of times the produce that the seed represented. So you get these varying degrees of growth, and that's all a good thing. Now we're going to read tomorrow, I guess, the interpretation of this parable later on in the chapter, and we'll see what the early church said this meant, and we'll look some more at what this means. So for now, for today, what can I say? Well, think about the sower. The sower's out there sowing the seed. So I guess try to be good soil. I don't know what that means, but work on yourself and be receptive to the seed, the gospel message that's sown. And we will see you tomorrow. So have a great Tuesday.